We've got Josiah in California. You're on with David and Matt. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure.
Same.
So I think unless you've changed questions, your question kind of ties into what we were just talking about. So please go ahead and tell us what you're thinking.
Yeah, I just noticed that this might get kind of deep. I mean, so I was halfway listening to what you guys were talking about from the very beginning, but I was actually reading some scripture while I was waiting. So I was able to kind of I was able to hear parts of what everyone was saying.
Okay, so do me a favor, Josiah. Put the scripture down. I'm just having fun with you.
Yeah, I just want to preface everything. Because the reason I said that is because, so I was planning on giving a point by point like everyone else.
Yeah.
But I decided that's not what I'm going to do. So, because I think it's kind of unfair because you guys aren't coming at people with your points. They're coming at you with the points that they've already prepared answers to. So I think it'd be better to just go back and forth with our own instinctive abilities, you know?
I tell you what, instead of just giving us a preamble and a description of what's going to happen, let's just do it. Say whatever it is you're thinking and we'll dig in.
Jump in. Yeah. Ask a question, make a statement.
Okay, so I noticed that when I look at the evidence given for anything, like evidence given for aliens or paranormal or evolution or the Big Bang, I notice there's always evidence, obviously, or else people wouldn't believe these things. The only thing I have curiosity about is how do we know we're interpreting the evidence in the best way? And everyone thinks they're interpreting the evidence in the best way they can, but
it reminds me of one of my favorite questions, Josiah, which is, what's it feel like to be wrong?
Yeah.
It feels exactly like being right if you haven't discovered that you're wrong.
For sure. And I don't mean to roll over what you're saying, Josiah. Please do. I'll allow you to continue. But that's a great question. I mean, that is the question. Yeah. That is how that's why we're like having this conversation. Like, because people keep asking that question and trying to solve it. Like,
it's the reason the philosophers have developed thoughts on epistemology, and it's the reason that scientists are doing what they're doing the way they're doing it.
And honestly, you know, maybe there's a better way than science. We don't know yet. It's the best way we've done so far, and that's, you know, it seems to be working pretty well. It got us to the moon, if you believe that. But it definitely got us to have this conversation, which involves a lot of technological innovations that required us to ask that question over and over again. So there are all sorts of ways to try to derive, to try to figure out if the evidence before us is evidence for X, Y, or Z. And I think that's a fantastic question to ask. I don't think you're off base. Do you have more to add?
Well, but just before that, I also don't think that it's nearly as difficult as some people would like to think it is, because where we tend to ask this sort of question is with regard to things that aren't particularly well understood, like, or that affect us personally. So how many of us have spent any time thinking about whether or not the evidence for our current understanding of electricity is accurate, as we're sitting here with lights surrounding me, cameras pointed at me, broadcasting over the internet to people on cellular devices, et cetera. All of this ties into our understanding of electricity, everything right down to the integrated circuits in your devices. And yet we don't sit around going, hey, I wonder if we're really right to believe this evidence. And that's because the results of it are so overwhelming. You're just, I mean, to go back to commercials from when I was a kid, you're soaking in it. You are soaking in science all the time, and you just don't notice it until it comes up with something that is in conflict with a belief you have, or that seems to be out of shape with reality as you understand it. And what we have to do then is go and look and see if our previous understanding is more in line with the facts and the data and the methods than our new potential understanding.
Yeah. It's like all the evidence. I mean, it's important to use language like this, I think, not just in science, but in just like these kind of conversations. You know, the evidence collected so far suggests this conclusion is more likely than the alternatives. And that's really just how it works. And you're always open to getting more evidence and reaching different conclusions, as long as you keep playing that game by the rules that we've established. And, there are the paradigm shifts that have taken place in every scientific discipline have usually taken place from a model was built up over time based off the evidence and the conclusions that you can draw from it. And then when new tools were made available or new evidence was collected, if it seemed like it started to become anomalous with the model we had put forth, we changed the model. And you're getting to live in a time period where we've done that a whole lot. So we've started to really coalesce around some ideas that seem to be pretty good, but we're always open to changing them.
I'm wondering, Josiah, if there's a particular thing that, like an example where you think, oh, here's a piece of evidence and it can be so widely, or so the interpretations of the evidence can be so wildly different that it's a problem.
If I had to think of one that I think that you might be willing to consider, it would be like evolution. I think a lot of the times there's evidence presented on both sides of the scientific debate, and oftentimes I feel,
Josiah, there is no scientific debate on evolution. Evolution is a fact, an observed fact, and the theory of evolution by means of natural selection is the model that Darwin proposed to best explain that fact, and we have continued to improve on it. But there's not scientific debate about whether or not evolution happened. Well,
that's the thing. I know evolution happens to a degree. The evolution that is observable, we have definitions like, adaptations and stuff like that. And of course, the great disagreement is over, do those adaptations lead to such huge things over time? So I guess, like, for example,
there isn't disagreement in the scientific community. There's a disagreement between certain proponents of religious models that aren't scientific and science. Because science doesn't say, hey, we have cracked and understood everything that leads to diverse species, and we've explained it all. That's not it at all. What's happening, and what you're kind of advocating for, is in the gaps in our knowledge, religionists try to stick their God in there. Like, we know evolution happens, but just maybe, it's not enough to lead to humans, and therefore now we need a God for this. Except that none of that has been demonstrated scientifically. It is antithetical to the understanding of evolution. And what's happening here is somebody saying, you don't know everything, but I've got a friend who does, and my friend is Jesus or God or Allah or whatever. That's not the way science works. So just have the fact that there are people who don't accept that science is incomplete and tentative doesn't mean that their alternative explanations for the gaps in our knowledge rise to the level of science. They don't rise to the level of toilet paper, in my view, but that's kind of like a personal take on my part.
I would really like to present at least an example of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Please do.
So I think in every branch of science, there's a way that the Bible answers it to a degree. Just like when, I'm just going to break it down to the simplest.
Are you going to give us an example about evolution, or are you going to do a sermon about the Bible?
No. This is about what I notice between both paradigms. So I notice everyone interprets the science based on their paradigm. Most people, at least. Scientists will say, well, we already know that the geologic column represents billions of years. So whenever they're presented with like radiometric dating or carbon dating, there's so many examples when the dating methods will contradict the paradigm, but they toss it out. And there are even evolution scientists that acknowledge that. They say if it goes against what we believe, we just toss it out. And
No, that's not what happens. That's what you've been told happens by creationists. That's not actually what happens.
And the scientific discourse is, scientists are never stop arguing with each other. Every paper that comes out, there's a period of time where it gets torn to shreds by everybody's peers, and it sometimes can take 5 years for just a 2 or 3 page paper to like make it through that process. And there are people who, in their siloed field, if something comes along that's incredibly anomalous to something that seems to be established over, decades of research, there will be an immediate pushback to say, okay, well, you need to really make a case for this.
Right.
But there's never a case it can get stuck in that pipeline for a while, but it always makes it to the end of that pipeline so far.
But even when we find anomalies, it's not just like, oh, that doesn't fit, so we're going to throw it out willy-nilly.
Never.
It is a recognition of the statistical likelihood of things that are anomalous. And what's incredibly frustrating for me is that you, as I don't know you, Josiah, but you seem like a nice person who's genuinely interested in finding out what the truth is. You've been sold a bill of goods about how science works, and that's not how science works. Meanwhile, the people who are selling you this bill of goods, the creationists, have done zero science to demonstrate evidence towards their proposed solution. So all you can do, I mean all that the creationists can do, and you by proxy once you do this, is sit here and go, yeah, but here's a problem in science. Yeah, but here's a problem in science. Yeah, but here's a problem in science. Congratulations. None of us said science was perfect. And science doesn't make proclamations about truth. Science doesn't say this is true. Science always presents tentative conclusions and models that are the best explanation of the available facts. In the entire history of the world, the number of times that science has been proven wrong has always been tied to science proving science wrong. At no point in history has any religion proved science wrong. At no point in history has any religion presented scientifically valid evidence of their supernatural claims.
Okay. You said that when evolution scientists provide proof, creationists don't do anything to counter that, or they don't do anything that's sufficient enough.
No, that's not what I said. I don't know if you're busy reading a sermon in the middle of this or not, but I didn't talk about evolution scientists. I talk about science and scientists. And what I said was that the scientists are actually doing science and the creationists are not. It's not like they've presented scientific findings that shows there is a creator or a supernatural realm.
I think if you lend integrity to an event that happened to me, I could do my best, but
Okay. Josiah, let's do this because there's a bunch of other callers waiting. Tell us the event that happened to you that you think somehow demonstrates creationism.
No, not creationism.
Oh, okay. What are we talking about then?
Your statement was the Bible and religion has never brought forth any evidence to prove in the spirit supernatural. That's what you said.
Yes, there is not sufficient evidence to warrant the belief or acceptance of any supernatural proposition is my position.
Okay. Like I said, I have an experience that I could get into if you
just tell me the experience. But here's the thing. It's going to be a waste of time because the dirty little secret, and I will let you tell your story, but the dirty little secret is that it is not currently possible to demonstrate that the supernatural exists or that the supernatural interacts with reality. And if it had happened, it's not going to happen from an anecdote on a Call an Atheist show. It's going to be a Nobel fucking Prize is what it's going to be. But tell us your story.
Okay. Can I say two things?
Please do. Just make a statement. Go for it.
Okay. So my first point is, I know you're more interested in the science of it. So before I get to my experience, there's this guy, I can't find his name. He's a scientist. He's a creationist though. His first name is Kevin. And he's also a paleontologist. And he, I think it was in Montana, he uncovered with a couple of his teammates, he uncovered Triceratops that was just a couple feet under the ground, and the climate in that area fluctuates all the time. So hot, cold, and his I guess his rebuttal to millions of years and dinosaur tissue surviving for millions of years is he found Triceratops soft tissue, and there's a video of the soft tissue being used and stuff like that. So there was a woman named Mary Schweitzer that discovered.
Are we getting to your story, or are you just going to give me more glurge to Google?
Well, no, this is something that I want you to look up and you can actually verify for yourself.
If you don't think so have you ever gone to talkorigins.org and maybe looked at the index to creationist claims where they actually address pretty much every one of these that comes up all the time? I don't need you telling me other people's stories. You had a story of what happened to you that was going to prove the supernatural. That's what I care about.
Okay. So we're not going to finish that. Okay. So,
what good does it do for you to come in and talk about something that you don't understand and don't know about, can't even remember the person's name, and I don't understand and don't know about, and nobody in the scientific community seems to think that finding one anomaly, or even if it were an anomaly, undermines the mountains of evidence for evolution? It's like, can you just tell us whatever story it is that you think confirms the supernatural? Because that's why I let you stay, so let's do it.
Okay, well, thank you. Appreciate it. This experience, I hate to drag this on, but I can't just tell you the experience because
You could if you'd stop with a fucking preamble and just get to the point.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. I had a dream that it started, I was here on the earth. Now, dreams are not evidence to most people, especially atheists, but just wait until I give you the explanation. I'll spoil it. I saw something in my dream that I knew nothing about. I saw a man in my dream, and I actually saw him in real life after the fact, and every detail of the dream had to do with this man. And
okay,
I think that's just.
Okay, so let me jump in to make this last shorter. You had a dream, and the details of the dream, some of the details of the dream seem to match up with details of reality outside of the dream afterward. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Have you ever had a dream where that didn't happen?
Yeah.
Okay, and the details of the dream that took place outside of the dream, are those sort of details that are common to reality in general? Like, you didn't see a kraken or the sun explode or anything. You saw a person with the general features of a person.
Yes. Not only did I see this person's face, but I did not know the person from anyone on the earth.
Yeah.
It's a stranger to me.
I've had dreams like that. I've had dreams where people in my dreams resemble people in the real world. I'm trying to figure out what are you making. It feels like you're making the leap that you may have foreseen that person somehow.
Oh, there were so many more things to the dream. And that's the part that was very compelling to me. I'd just like you to hear it. Even if you don't accept it, I just think it's worth hearing.
So one of the things that we've seen, or that is strongly evidenced, is I can have a dream about somebody, and then when I meet somebody later, I can say, that's the person that I dreamt about, even if it wasn't, even if they don't necessarily look alike, and my brain will mold the two to fit together. How did you eliminate that possible explanation that your brain was merely stitching together a connection that isn't even necessarily there? How did you rule that out?
Yeah, and just to clarify, you don't have the dream to compare it to, like two photographs to put side by side. And there are psychological studies where we have had that, where people have been shown a photograph of someone and then shown a photograph. The photograph they actually had people rate the photograph and say, which one of these two people do you find more attractive? And then they say, well, it's A, not B. And then they say, okay. And they hand them the photograph and say, tell me why. But the photograph they hand is actually of the person they did not choose. It's been blown up a little bit larger. And people will dutifully describe every detail that they originally had described, that they'll describe the details of the person that they originally found more attractive than the other. So without the side-by-side comparison, we do have the tendency to do what Matt just described.
The other issue with this is, first of all, you said, dreams aren't evidence, especially to atheists. I don't know what the especially to atheists means, because I know some atheists who just love themselves some dreams and love themselves some woo and so it's not just atheists. But not only could you have a dream And then afterwards, your brain can massage details to meet, to make those two seem like a connection. But let's give you completely the benefit of the doubt, Josiah. Let's say that I am now convinced that you had a dream about a person, and the details about that dream were so vivid and so accurate that the instant you met that person, it was clear to you this is exactly the person you've dreamed about, even though you've never met them in real life. How can that be used as evidence for supernatural God? Because the fact that you experienced something is independent from how or why you experienced it. And so how could you possibly reach the conclusion that the best explanation is that there's some sort of supernatural intervention here that gave you a premonition in a dream?
I would love to explain everything, if for nothing else, just for you guys to sit on this and think about it later, if it ends up being interesting to you.
I asked the question.
Oh, sorry. How is that? I'm sorry. I didn't.
Even if I grant everything you say, you had a dream about a person, and then you met this person afterwards and you never met him before. And even if I accepted that all of that is true, how is that evidence that the best explanation is some sort of supernatural intervention to give you a premonition in a dream?
The reason it would be the reason it would be evidence, I guess, is because if you heard the dream, you would know that it's not even possible for this to occur outside of.
No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. You don't get to say there couldn't be any other explanation. That's a fallacy. You don't get to assert what is or isn't possible because you haven't demonstrated it. I appreciate the fact that you had an experience that you found personally compelling because you can't think of any other explanation, but that doesn't mean that you are warranted or justified in leaping to the conclusion that there must be some sort of supernatural intervention. That's just not the way reasoning works if you care about whether or not your beliefs are true. If you don't care about whether or not your beliefs are true, then yeah, just go with whatever you suspect is the truth, but that's not going to fly.
I'd still like to give my best answer for the question.
I'd love it. I've asked several times the question, haven't got an answer. So what's the answer?
So the evidence, we look at evidence as scientific evidence that we can observe, demonstrate, record, everything like that. But I'm saying, is it possible that if this is true, which we can't prove with the scientific method, would that make it possible for another method to exist that we don't know about? And I know that's a leap. I know that's huge,
okay.
But
Josiah, you've gone from you are convinced of X, and then when we point out the various problems with it, now what you're saying is it possible that there's some other way of knowing? Well, when you find another way of knowing and demonstrate its reliability and show that its reliability is not only superior to the scientific methods and the critical thinking and the examination process that we currently have now, but that it also, in addition to being superior, provides evidence of the supernatural, that's the point at which your conclusion is warranted. Until then, you had a dream, you had an experience, and you're just going, hey, is it possible that there's something here? Well, I don't know. That's your job to demonstrate that it's possible.
Yeah, I'm with, it's okay to say, is it possible? Well, maybe, yeah, it could be. But we need a method by which to determine that is what there has to be some way that we have to get to that answer. And we have to use some sort of method to come to the conclusion.
What's worse in some cases, sorry, David.
No,
it's popped right in my head, is that people will use this to believe in a God. And it's what it is a slippery slope. Here's something I can't explain. It could be explained if there was a God who was giving me a dream. Therefore, I'm going to go ahead and believe there's a God that gave me this dream, because that actually is a sufficient explanation, but it's not necessarily the necessary and sufficient explanation.
Right. I mean,
and so the danger in accepting that you've experienced something supernatural is that it opens the floodgates to you not being able to determine whether or not anything you experience is supernatural. Maybe, is it possible that there's a million supernatural beings and that one of them's just messing with you and one of them gives you dreams and one of them steals socks out of the dryer?
Yeah, there are thousands of possible explanations, maybe millions, maybe an infinite number. So we have to gather evidence and then see which of those possibilities has the most supporting evidence, and then we can start trying to draw conclusions from it. So until you can create a framework for doing that, we're just kind of, farting around with it is what we're all.
And I'm going to give you the last word here in just a second, Josiah. But what it says right here in your initial comment is, when it comes to evidence, different people interpret it differently. Who is right? And what you're doing is not so much a who is right, but you're doing, this can't be proven wrong, so I'm okay and I'm comfortable going with it until such time as it goes wrong. But if your position is unfalsifiable, A, it's not scientific, and B, you should not believe it.
Okay. Now, while I do appreciate you saying let's give you the benefit of the doubt, we'll acknowledge that the dream happened, whatever, and everything you said came true in real life. The thing is, until you hear the dream, I think it's not fair to say, how do we know this doesn't require a superior method? Why can't the method be not superior, but equivalent?
You don't have a method, Josiah. You don't have a method. You have the hope that there's possibly a method. When you have a method, call me back.
The thing is, let's say you were to hear a dream, I'm not going to tell you the dream unless you actually want to hear it.
I asked you to tell me the dream 20 minutes ago, but I got to move on to other callers soon. So go ahead and get your last thoughts in.
Yeah, I'll just tell you the dream, because that's what I've been wanting to do since a while. The dream started off, I appeared on this earth, which the Bible says is perishable. And I know you don't want me to preach, but I'm giving context to why my dream.
Just stick to the dream, man.
Just tell me the fucking dream.
Okay, I appeared on this earth. I started turning to my side, and I made a 360 turn. When I made my way back to where I started, I appeared in a very beautiful place. There were a bunch of giant trees. Now, this is just a dream. I don't think about my dreams as being something greater than just a dream. But I ran, when I arrived to this new place, I ran directly in a straight line. And on my left, there was a trench. And across that trench, it was blurry. I could not see what was there. So I ran in a straight line parallel with this trench, very deep trench. And when I turned back around to where I started, I saw a man at my left who had a man dressed in a black suit, and he had very specific face. I was like focused in on his face for a few seconds. Then there was a black horse in front of him. Now this man and the horse were matching colors. They had black colors. Now
were the trees cherry trees? Because I've heard this song, Big Black Horse and Cherry Tree.
No, I don't know what trees they were. They were just really big trees that extended their leaves really far. Now, this is very interesting if you hear the whole thing, because I find it compelling, whether you're an atheist or not.
How could you find it compelling whether you're an atheist or not if you're not an atheist? Just tell me the story.
I said, okay. He ducked down, and he pointed his finger up in the air and started spinning his hand in a circle. As he spun his hand in a circle, a horse began to follow the movements of his hand and obey his every little tricks that he would do. Then when the man stood up, the horse stood up and kept spinning as the man kept signaling. And when the man ducked back down, the horse kept spinning while being ducked down close to the ground. And when the man stuck his palm out, the horse stopped. Now, this needs to be heard in its entirety in detail in order for you to understand why I find it compelling. When I saw what I was looking at, something caught my eye. Deep in the forest of these trees, there was a white horse running in the distance from the left to the right. And he was running very fast. And I was like, where is this horse going? What is this horse doing? He stopped. The horse ran to my right and stopped exactly where I appeared in that place. Then he ran directly towards me, and I stuck my hand out and he stopped.
How long is this dream?
It's probably long, but it's worth hearing.
Then we're moving on. Learn how to tell a story. Call me back when you get some kind of sound way to test this, because so far you've told me that you appeared on Earth, turned sideways, and after a 360-degree turn, you appeared in a beautiful place with trees, ran in a straight line with a trench on your left, turned back around. There was a man on your left. There was a black who was wearing a black suit with a very specific face and a black horse, and ducked down and pointed up, spun his hand in a circle. None of that is relevant to anything.
It is, but you haven't.
No, when you met this man, was there a horse anywhere near you?
No.
Yeah, goodbye.
The dream needs to speak for itself. The dream needs to speak for itself.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Then the dream can fucking call me.